Ryan Cole sat frozen across from a woman whose name he'd already forgotten, watching her mouth move without hearing a single word. His phone buzzed. Lily's babysitter, third time tonight. The cafe deck creaked beneath his feet, a sound no one else seemed to notice. He was 32 years old and had perfected the art of showing up while being completely absent. Then a voice cut through his fog, sharp and certain. "You're at the wrong table." He looked up. The woman standing there wasn't asking. She was deciding for him. And for the first time in years, Ryan didn't know whether to run or stay. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below. I want to see how far this story travels. And if it hits you where it matters, leave a like so I know you felt it too. Ryan Cole had learned to recognize the exact moment a date died. It wasn't dramatic. No one stormed out. No voices were raised. It was quieter than that. More like watching something deflate slowly, the air leaking out until all that remained was two people sitting across from each other, pretending. Tonight, that moment had arrived around the time his date, Melissa, started talking about her spin class. "It's really transformed my whole mindset," she was saying, gesturing with her wine glass. "Like, you're moving, but you're also still, you know? It's very grounding." Ryan nodded. He had no idea what she was talking about. His phone buzzed against his thigh for the third time in 20 minutes. He didn't need to check it to know it was Diane, Lily's babysitter. The first buzz had been informational. The second, a nudge. The third meant his 7-year-old daughter was either melting down or had decided bedtime was a suggestion. "Sorry," he said, pulling out his phone. "I just need to—" "Oh my God, is everything okay?" Her concern was immediate and performative, the kind of reaction people had when they wanted to seem caring but were mostly annoyed. The text read, "She wants you, won't sleep. Says her stomach hurts, but I think she just misses you." Ryan's jaw tightened. Lily had been doing this more often lately, manufacturing small emergencies to pull him back. Her therapist said it was normal for kids who'd lost a parent, testing to make sure the remaining one wouldn't disappear too. He typed back, "Be there in 30, can you stay?" The reply came instantly, "Yeah, but I have class at 8 a.m. "Everything all right?" his date asked again. And this time Ryan caught the edge in her voice. She knew. They always knew. "Yeah," he lied. "Just my daughter. She's having trouble sleeping." "Oh." The word landed flat. She took a sip of wine, her eyes drifting over his shoulder toward the other tables. "That's hard." It wasn't a question. It wasn't even really sympathy. It was the verbal equivalent of a polite step backward. Ryan had been here before. The moment single fathers mentioned their kids, something shifted. Not always. Not with everyone. But often enough that he'd started to anticipate it. The slight recalibration, the mental math women did when they realized he came with complications. He didn't blame them. He was 32, widowed, exhausted, and his life revolved entirely around a second grader who still slept with the light on. He wasn't a catch. He was a liability. "I should probably—" he started. "Yeah," she said quickly, almost relieved. "Totally. Kids come first." She was already reaching for her purse. They split the check in painful silence, both pretending this had been pleasant, both knowing they'd never speak again. Outside the cafe, she gave him a half hug that didn't quite connect and walked toward her car without looking back. Ryan stood alone on the sidewalk, the spring air cool against his face, and felt absolutely nothing. This was his life now, a series of failed attempts at something he wasn't even sure he wanted. His sister had set this one up, another in a long line of introductions from well-meaning friends and family who couldn't accept that Ryan had made peace with his loneliness. Except he hadn't. Not really. He turned back toward the cafe, intending to cut through to the parking lot when he heard it. A crack, subtle, almost inaudible beneath the murmur of conversation and the acoustic guitar someone was playing inside. But Ryan had spent 15 years in construction before Lily was born, and some instincts didn't fade. He stopped mid-step and listened. There it was again. A creak, low and strained, coming from the deck. The cafe was built on a slope overlooking the river. Its outdoor seating area extended over the water on what appeared to be a newly renovated deck. String lights crisscrossed overhead, and the space was packed with couples and small groups enjoying the unseasonably warm evening. Ryan frowned and walked closer, his eyes tracing the support beams visible beneath the railing. They looked fine, new even. But the sound, you hear that too. He turned. The woman standing behind him wasn't asking a question. She was confirming an observation. She was maybe his age, dressed in a charcoal blazer and dark jeans that somehow looked both casual and expensive. Her hair was pulled back in a way that was too severe to be accidental, and her eyes, sharp, assessing, were fixed on the same support beam he'd been studying. "Sorry?" Ryan said. "The deck," she said, nodding toward it. "You noticed?" Ryan hesitated. "Yeah, probably nothing." "Probably," she agreed. But she didn't sound convinced. She walked past him, moving toward the railing with the kind of confidence that suggested she had every right to be there. Ryan watched as she leaned over slightly, peering down at the structure below. "You work here?" he asked. She glanced back at him, and for the first time, something resembling amusement crossed her face. "I own it." Ryan blinked. "Oh, Elena Ward." She didn't offer her hand, just stated her name like a fact. Ryan Cole. She nodded, already turning her attention back to the deck. "You're in construction." It wasn't a question. "Was," Ryan said. "How'd you—" "You looked at the beam before you looked at me." She straightened up, brushing her hands together, even though she hadn't touched anything. "Most people don't notice infrastructure until it fails." Ryan couldn't argue with that. Elena studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she said, "You were on a date. That obvious?" "You have the posture of someone who just survived something unpleasant." Despite himself, Ryan almost smiled. "It wasn't that bad." Liar. This time he did smile. Just barely. Elena crossed her arms, her gaze shifting back toward the cafe. "I opened this location 6 months ago, had the whole deck rebuilt. Contractor came highly recommended." Her mouth tightened. "I'm starting to think I should have asked better questions." "You think there's a problem?" "I think I'm not an engineer." She looked at him again, and this time there was something closer to calculation in her eyes. "But you are." "I'm not—" "Close enough." She tilted her head toward the cafe. "Come inside. I want to show you something." Ryan glanced at his phone. He should leave. Diane was waiting. Lily was waiting. But something about Elena's directness, her complete lack of pretense, made him hesitate. "I've got maybe 15 minutes, he said. "That's all I need." The interior of the cafe was warm and understated, all exposed brick and reclaimed wood, with Edison bulbs casting a soft glow over mismatched furniture that somehow worked. It was the kind of place that felt effortless but had clearly been painstakingly designed. Elena led him past the bar, through a door marked private, and down a short hallway to an office that was surprisingly sparse. A desk, a filing cabinet, a single framed blueprint on the wall. She pulled a rolled set of plans from a drawer and spread them across the desk. "These are the approved designs," she said, tapping the paper. "City signed off on everything. Inspector cleared it for occupancy." Ryan leaned over the plans, his eyes scanning the structural details. Everything looked standard. Load-bearing columns spaced correctly. Joists properly rated. "On paper, it's fine," he said. But paper doesn't creak." Elena's jaw tightened. "That's what I thought." Ryan straightened up. "You should have someone come out, structural engineer, someone who can actually assess it." "I already did." She rolled the plans back up with more force than necessary. "He said it was settling, normal for new construction." "You don't believe him." "I don't believe anything I can't verify myself." Ryan studied her. There was something coiled in the way she stood, a tension that didn't match the calm in her voice. This wasn't just about the cafe. "Why does this place matter so much?" he asked. Elena's eyes flicked toward him, and for a split second, her composure cracked. Just enough for Ryan to see the exhaustion underneath. "Because I built it," she said quietly. "And I don't build things that fall apart." There was weight in those words, more than she was saying. Ryan's phone buzzed again. He ignored it. "Look," he said, "I can't do a full inspection tonight, but I can take a quick look at the supports. See if anything's obviously wrong." Elena hesitated. "You don't owe me that." "I know." She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." They went back outside, and Ryan borrowed a flashlight from behind the bar. The deck was still crowded, but most people had moved inside as the temperature dropped. He crouched near the edge, shining the light down into the framework below. At first glance, everything looked solid. The beams were xin, the bolts tight. But when Ryan shifted his weight, he felt it, a slight give, almost imperceptible. He moved to the next section and pressed down. Same thing. Problem? Elena asked from behind him. Ryan didn't answer right away. He was tracing the support structure with his eyes, mapping out the load distribution. Then he saw it. One of the main support posts was sitting on a footing that wasn't deep enough. Not by much, maybe 2 inches, but enough to compromise stability under sustained weight. This post, he said, pointing, the footing's too shallow. It's not going to fail tomorrow, but give it time, give it weather, give it enough people standing in the wrong spot, and it'll give out. Yeah. Elena crouched beside him, her shoulder nearly brushing his. Can it be fixed? Absolutely. But you'd have to close the deck while it's being done, and you'd have to redo the inspection. How long? Depends. Could be a week, could be 2. Elena was quiet for a moment, staring down at the flawed post. Then she stood abruptly. Thank you. Ryan rose to his feet, handing the flashlight back. You going to fix it? I don't have a choice. She said it like a conclusion, not a complaint. Ryan checked his phone again. 3 new messages from Diane, each one more urgent. I have to go. Your daughter. He nodded. Elena looked at him, and for the first time her expression softened, just slightly. What's her name? Lily. How old? 7. That's a hard age. Ryan didn't ask how she knew, he just nodded again. As he turned to leave, Elena called after him. Ryan. He stopped. If I need someone to oversee the fix, she said, would you be interested? Ryan turned back, surprised. I don't do that kind of work anymore. Why not? Because I have a kid and a day job and no time for anything else. Elena didn't flinch. I pay well. It's not about the money. Then what is it about? Ryan opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer that didn't sound like an excuse. Think about it, Elena said. I'm not going anywhere. That's child. Ryan made it home 20 minutes later to find Diane half asleep on the couch and Lily wide awake in her room, surrounded by stuffed animals and picture books. Hey, Bug, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Lily looked up at him with eyes that were too much like her mother's. My tummy hurt. I know, Diane told me. But now it's better. Ryan crossed the room and sat on the edge of her bed. Convenient. Lily grinned, then quickly hid it. I missed you. I was only gone 2 hours. That's a long time. Ryan sighed and pulled her into a hug. She smelled like strawberry shampoo and the faint sugar of the cookies she'd definitely snuck after dinner. You can't keep doing this, Lil, he said gently. Diane's good to us, but she can't stay forever every time you decide you don't want to sleep. I know. Lily's voice was small. So what's really going on? She was quiet for a moment, picking at the edge of her blanket. Then, almost too soft to hear, what if you don't come back? Ryan's chest tightened. It had been 3 years since Anna died. 3 years since the accident that turned Ryan's life into before and after. And Lily had been so young, barely 4, that sometimes Ryan wondered how much she actually remembered. But this fear, this was new. I'm always coming back, he said firmly. But what if you don't? Then I'll find a way. He tilted her chin up so she'd look at him. You're stuck with me, Bug. That's the deal. Lily nodded, but Ryan could see she wasn't convinced. Not really. He stayed with her until she fell asleep, which took longer than usual. By the time he finally made it back downstairs, Diane was gone, having let herself out quietly. Ryan collapsed onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. His phone sat on the coffee table, Elena's business card tucked into the case. He'd taken it without really thinking, and now he pulled it out, turning it over in his hands. Elena Ward, CEO, Crescent Hospitality Group. He Googled her. The results were immediate and extensive. Articles in business magazines, features about her company's rapid expansion, a profile in Forbes under 35. She wasn't just successful, she was formidable, and she'd asked him for help. Ryan didn't know why that mattered, but it did. He set the phone down and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he'd go back to his regular life, back to managing a warehouse, back to drop-offs and pickups and bedtime battles, back to the routine that kept him functional and numb. But tonight, for just a few minutes, he let himself imagine something different. 3 days later, the cafe was shut down. Ryan saw the news on his lunch break. A city inspector had red-tagged the deck after an anonymous tip. The article didn't say much, only that structural concerns had been raised and the property was under review. He knew immediately it had been Elena. She'd reported her own business. Ryan sat in his truck staring at his phone, and before he could talk himself out of it, he called the number on the card. She answered on the second ring. Ryan, not a question. She'd saved his number. I saw the news, he said. Good. That means the word's getting out. You shut yourself down. I wasn't going to wait for someone to get hurt. Ryan exhaled slowly. That took guts. It took common sense. Her voice was clipped, all business. Then quieter. I assume you're calling because you changed your mind. About? Helping me fix it. Ryan leaned back against the seat, watching a crew of guys unload pallets in the warehouse lot. His supervisor was waving at him, pointing at his watch. I don't know if I can, Ryan said. That's not a no. It's not a yes either. Then what is it? Ryan didn't answer right away. He thought about Lily, about the careful balance he'd built, about all the ways he'd learned to protect himself from risk. It's complicated, he finally said. Most things worth doing are. Elena didn't push, she just waited. And Ryan, despite every logical reason to hang up, found himself saying, let me see the site, just to assess. No promises. Fair enough? He could hear the shift in her tone, not quite relief, but something close. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. But Ryan showed up at the cafe just after dawn, before the morning rush, before the traffic made parking impossible. Elena was already there, waiting outside with 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one without a word. Thanks, Ryan said. It's black. If you need sugar, there's... Black's fine. They stood in silence for a moment, drinking their coffee as the city woke up around them. Then Elena nodded toward the deck. Show me what you see, she said. Ryan set his cup down and climbed over the caution tape. The deck was empty now, stripped of furniture and cordoned off with yellow barriers. In the early light, the flaws were easier to spot. Slight warping in the boards, stress cracks forming near the bolts. He spent the next hour inspecting every post, every beam, every connection point. Elena followed, asking questions but mostly just watching. When he finally straightened up, his assessment was clear. It's fixable, he said, but it's going to take more work than I thought. How much more? The footing's not the only problem. A couple of the load-bearing beams are undersized. They'll need to be replaced entirely. Elena's expression didn't change, but Ryan saw her shoulders tense. Timeline? 3 weeks. Maybe 4 if the city drags their feet on the reinspection. Cost? Ryan gave her a number. She didn't flinch. And you? She asked. What would it take to get you to run this? Ryan looked at her. Why me? Because you noticed what no one else did. Because you're not trying to sell me something. And because... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Because I think you need this as much as I do. Ryan frowned. You don't know anything about me. I know enough. Like what? Like you're running from something. Or toward something. Maybe both. Her eyes held his. And I know what that looks like. Ryan wanted to argue, to tell her she was wrong, but he couldn't, because she wasn't. I have a daughter, he said instead. I can't just... I'm not asking you to abandon her. I'm asking you to show up, a few hours a day, coordinate the crew, make sure it's done right. And if I can't, then I'll find someone else. She said it without malice, just fact. But I'd rather it be you. Ryan looked back at the deck, at the work that needed to be done, at the thing that was broken and waiting to be fixed. He thought about Lily, about the careful life he'd built, and then he thought about the last 3 years, about the weight of them, about how tired he was of playing it safe. Okay, he heard himself say. Elena's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Okay, I'll do it. But I need flexibility. If my kid needs me, I'm gone. No questions. Done. And I'm not doing this alone. You're going to be involved, every step. I wasn't planning on disappearing. Ryan nodded slowly. Then he extended his hand. Elena took it. Her grip was firm, certain. And for the first time in a long time, Ryan felt like he'd made a choice that wasn't just about survival. It was about something more. The first morning Ryan showed up to run the rebuild, he arrived to find Elena already there with a clipboard and a contractor who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. "This is Miguel," Elena said by way of introduction. "He's the one who built it the first time." Miguel didn't extend his hand. He just crossed his arms and stared at Ryan like he was the problem. "City inspector says the footing's off," Miguel said flatly. "That's not on me. Ground settled. Happens all the time." Ryan set his toolbox down and looked at the man. Miguel was maybe 50, with the kind of weathered face that came from decades working outside. His crew was already unloading equipment from 2 trucks, moving with the efficiency of people who'd done this 1,000 times. "The footing's 2 inches shallow," Ryan said evenly. "That's not settling. That's installation." Miguel's jaw tightened. "You calling me a liar?" "I'm calling it what it is." Elena stepped between them before it could escalate. "Gentlemen, the city shut us down. The only thing that matters now is fixing it right. Miguel, your crew knows this site. Ryan's going to coordinate the structural changes. You good with that?" Miguel looked at her, then at Ryan, then back at her. "You're the boss." It wasn't agreement, it was barely tolerance, but Elena took it. "Great," she said briskly. "Let's get started." The next 3 hours were a lesson in tension management. Miguel's crew worked fast but sloppy, cutting corners Ryan had to catch in real time. Twice he had to stop them from securing beams that weren't level. Once he had to pull a guy off a ladder because the footing wasn't stable enough to support the weight. Each time, Miguel watched with thinly veiled resentment. By noon, Ryan's patience was threadbare. "We need to talk," he said, pulling Miguel aside while the crew broke for lunch. Miguel lit a cigarette and blew smoke toward the river. "So talk." "Your guys are good," Ryan said carefully, "but they're rushing. We're on a deadline." "A deadline doesn't mean anything if the work fails inspection again." Miguel took another drag, his eyes narrowing. "You think you know better than me?" "I think I'm the one Elena hired to make sure this gets done right. She hired you because you got in her head." Miguel flicked ash onto the deck. "I've been doing this since before you were born, kid. Don't come in here acting like you invented construction." Ryan felt his temper flare but kept his voice level. "Then prove it. Show me you can do this without cutting corners." For a moment, Miguel just stared at him. Then he dropped the cigarette and crushed it under his boot. "You want it done your way? Fine. But when this drags on and costs double, that's on you." He walked off before Ryan could respond. Elena appeared at Ryan's elbow a moment later, holding 2 sandwiches wrapped in paper. "That went well." "He hates me. He hates that I brought you in. There's a difference." She handed him one of the sandwiches. "Turkey. If you don't eat meat, you're out of luck." Ryan unwrapped it and took a bite. It was good. Better than it had any right to be from a corner deli. "Why'd you keep him?" Ryan asked. "If you knew the work was bad, why bring him back?" Elena leaned against the railing, looking out at the water. "Because firing him would have meant starting over. New crew, new timeline, new costs. And because..." She paused. "Because I wanted to believe the problem was fixable without burning everything down. And now? Now I know better." They ate in silence for a while, watching Miguel's crew joke around by their trucks. One of them was showing the others something on his phone, and they all laughed, the kind of easy camaraderie Ryan hadn't experienced in years. "You miss it," Elena said. It wasn't a question. Ryan glanced at her. "Miss what?" "This. Being on a job site, building things." He thought about it. "Sometimes." "Why'd you stop?" Ryan set the sandwich down, suddenly not hungry. "Because my wife died and I had a 4-year-old who needed me more than I needed a career." Elena didn't flinch at the bluntness. She just nodded slowly. "How long ago?" 3 years. "That's recent." "Doesn't feel like it." Elena was quiet for a moment, then said, "My father died when I was 12. Heart attack. No warning. One day he was fine, and the next he was gone." She turned to look at Ryan. "People kept telling me it would get easier. That time heals. All that garbage. Did it? No. I just got better at carrying it. Ryan looked at her, really looked, and saw something he hadn't noticed before. Underneath the composure and the sharp edges, Elena was tired. The kind of tired that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from holding too much for too long. This cafe, Ryan said slowly, it's not just business for you, is it? Elena's expression didn't change, but her eyes shifted away. My father loved coffee. He used to take me to this place downtown every Sunday morning. Same table, same order. He'd read the paper, and I'd do homework. She paused. When I bought this location, I told myself it was a good investment. Prime real estate, underutilized space, strong growth potential. But I wanted to build something he would have been proud of. Her voice was quiet now, almost fragile. Something that lasted. Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. He understood that need. The desperate want to prove that the people you'd lost hadn't left you incapable. He would have been proud, Ryan said. You didn't know him. I know you. Elena looked at him, and for just a second her guard dropped completely. Then she straightened up and brushed crumbs off her hands. We should get back to work. But she didn't move right away, and neither did Ryan. They stood there, side by side, not saying anything, and somehow that felt like enough. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm. Ryan would drop Lily off at school, head to the cafe, spend the day coordinating the rebuild, then race back to pick her up before the after-school program closed. It was exhausting and chaotic, and there were days when Ryan felt like he was barely holding it together. But it was also the most alive he'd felt in years. Elena was there almost every day, working from the cafe's office or sitting at one of the interior tables with her laptop open, fielding calls and emails while keeping one eye on the construction. She didn't micromanage, but she noticed everything. When one of Miguel's guys started using the wrong grade of lumber, she caught it before Ryan did. When the city inspector showed up unannounced, she had every permit and document ready within minutes. She was impressive and intimidating, and Ryan was starting to realize he liked both. One afternoon, while Ryan was in the crawl space beneath the deck checking the new footings, his phone rang. He didn't recognize the number but answered anyway. Mr. Cole? This is Westbridge Elementary. We need you to come pick up Lily. Ryan's stomach dropped. What happened? Is she hurt? She's fine physically, but she's had an incident with another student and we need to discuss it. Incident. That could mean anything from a shove on the playground to a full meltdown. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Ryan said, already climbing out of the crawl space. He found Elena in the office, on a call with a supplier. She looked up when he appeared in the doorway, saw his face, and immediately told whoever was on the other end she'd call them back. What's wrong? I have to get Lily. School called. Go. I'll be back as soon as... Ryan, go. We're fine here. He hesitated, then nodded and left. 20 minutes later, he was sitting in the principal's office with Lily beside him, her arms crossed and her face set in a stubborn scowl Ryan knew too well. The principal, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and no patience for nonsense, folded her hands on the desk. Lily pushed another student during recess, hard enough that the girl fell and scraped her knee. Ryan looked at his daughter. Is that true? Lily didn't answer. Lily. She said my mom was stupid for dying. Ryan's breath caught. He turned to the principal. What? We're still getting the full story from both girls, the principal said carefully. But yes, that appears to be what triggered the incident. Ryan felt rage flood through him, hot and immediate and directed at a 7-year-old he didn't even know. He forced it down and looked at Lily again. So you pushed her. She deserved it. Lily. She did. Lily's voice cracked and tears welled up in her eyes. She said Mom was dumb. She said only dumb people die in car accidents. Ryan closed his eyes and tried to breathe. The principal cleared her throat. We have a zero-tolerance policy for physical aggression. Lily will be suspended for the rest of the week. Understood, Ryan said quietly. They left the school in silence. Lily climbed into the truck and stared out the window, and Ryan sat behind the wheel, trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to say. He didn't want to punish her for defending her mother's memory, but he also couldn't let her think violence was the answer. You can't push people, Lil, he finally said. I know. Even when they say terrible things. I know. Do you? She turned to look at him, and the pain in her eyes nearly broke him. What was I supposed to do? Just let her say it? You were supposed to tell a teacher. They never do anything. Ryan didn't have a good answer for that because she was probably right. You're not going back to the cafe with me, he said instead. You're coming home, and you're going to spend the rest of the day thinking about better ways to handle this. Lily's face crumpled. I'm sorry. I know you are. Are you mad? Ryan reached over and squeezed her hand. I'm sad that you're hurting, and I'm frustrated that you made a choice that got you in trouble. But I'm not mad. Lily nodded, wiping at her eyes. Ryan pulled out his phone and texted Elena. Not coming back today. Family stuff. Her response came immediately. Take all the time you need. He drove Lily home, got her settled with a snack and her homework, and then sat on the porch steps and let himself feel everything he'd been pushing down. Anger at the kid who'd said something so cruel, grief that Anna wasn't here to help him navigate this, guilt that he'd been so focused on the cafe that he'd missed how much Lily was struggling, and underneath it all, fear. Fear that he was failing her, fear that he'd never be enough on his own. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. If you need to step back from the project, I understand. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed back, I don't want to step back, then don't. It's complicated. You keep saying that. Ryan smiled despite himself, because it's true. Complicated doesn't mean impossible. He didn't know how to respond to that, so he didn't. He just sat there, phone in hand, and let the evening settle around him. The next morning, Ryan brought Lily to the cafe. He hadn't planned to, but Diane couldn't cover on short notice, and he didn't have anyone else to call. So he packed Lily's backpack with books and crayons and snacks and brought her to the one place he probably shouldn't. Elena was already there when they arrived. She looked at Lily, then at Ryan, and didn't ask questions. Conference room's empty, she said. She can set up in there. You sure? Wouldn't offer if I wasn't. Ryan got Lily settled at the big table with her things spread out and made her promise to stay put and be quiet. She nodded solemnly, still subdued from the day before. When Ryan came back out, Elena was waiting. She okay? Elena asked. She will be. What happened? Ryan gave her the short version. Elena listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. Kids are brutal, she finally said. Yeah. She's lucky she has you. Ryan huffed a bitter laugh. Doesn't feel like it most days. That's because you're doing it right. If it felt easy, you'd be screwing up. Ryan looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. My mother fell apart after my dad died, Elena continued. Completely. She couldn't get out of bed for months. I had to figure out everything on my own. School, food, bills, and I resented her for it. She paused. But now I understand. Grief doesn't care about your responsibilities. It just takes. How'd you get through it? I didn't have a choice. Neither did she. We just kept going until one day it hurt a little less. Elena met his eyes. You're doing that for Lily, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Ryan didn't know what to say to that. Before he could figure it out, Miguel appeared from around the side of the building, looking annoyed. We've got a problem with the permits. City's saying the revised plans don't match what was approved. Elena swore under her breath. I'll handle it. She grabbed her phone and walked off, already dialing. Ryan watched her go, then turned to Miguel. What's the actual issue? The beam specs. We upgraded to a heavier grade, but the inspector says it's not on the filed paperwork. Because we changed it last week. Yeah, well, apparently we needed to file an amendment. Ryan rubbed his face. How long's that going to take? 2 weeks if we're lucky, a month if we're not. We don't have a month. Miguel shrugged. Then you better hope she's got pull with the city. As it turned out, Elena did. By the end of the day, she'd gotten the amendment expedited, charmed the inspector into scheduling a walkthrough for the following Monday, and negotiated a discount on materials from a supplier who apparently owed her a favor. How do you do that? Ryan asked when she finally sat down at the end of the day, looking exhausted but satisfied. Do what? Make people say yes. I don't make them. I just give them reasons to want to. That's manipulative. That's business. She grinned. But yeah, a little manipulative. Ryan laughed, and Elena's grin widened. From the conference room, Lily appeared in the doorway, clutching a drawing. Dad, I'm hungry. Ryan stood. Okay, Bug, let's go. But Lily wasn't looking at him. She was looking at Elena. Did you build this place? Lily asked. Elena glanced at Ryan, then nodded. I did. It's pretty. Thank you. Lily walked over and handed Elena the drawing. It was a crayon sketch of the cafe, crude but unmistakably the right building, complete with string lights and stick figure people sitting at tables. Elena took it carefully, like it was something precious. This is really good, Lily. You can keep it if you want. I'd like that. Lily smiled, the first real smile Ryan had seen from her in days, and then ran back to grab her backpack. Elena looked down at the drawing, and when she looked up at Ryan, there was something soft in her expression, something unguarded. She's great, Elena said quietly. Yeah, Ryan said. She is. And for the first time, he didn't feel guilty for being here, for taking time away from Lily to do this work. Because maybe, just maybe, this was something she needed too. The following Monday, the inspector came and went without issue. The new footings passed, the upgraded beams passed. Even Miguel's welding work, which Ryan had been worried about, passed. By the end of the week, the deck was functionally complete. All that remained was the final cosmetic work and one last inspection before the city would clear them to reopen. Ryan stood on the newly rebuilt structure, testing the boards with his weight, and felt a satisfaction he hadn't experienced in years. It was solid. It was right. Feels good, doesn't it? Elena said, joining him. Yeah, it does. She leaned against the railing, looking out at the river. The sun was setting, casting everything in warm gold light. I owe you. You paid me. That's not what I mean. Ryan turned to look at her. Then what do you mean? Elena was quiet for a moment, choosing her words. I've spent the last 10 years building things, companies, properties, revenue streams, and I'm good at it. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started. She looked at him. You reminded me. I didn't do anything. You cared about the work, about doing it right. Not because it was profitable or strategic, but because it mattered. She paused. That's rare. Ryan didn't know what to say, so he just nodded. Elena pushed off the railing and turned to face him fully. I want to ask you something, and I need you to actually think about it before you answer. Okay? I'm opening 2 more locations next year. Both need full builds from the ground up. I want you to run them. Ryan blinked. What? You heard me. Elena, I know. You have Lily. You have your day job. You have 100 reasons to say no. She stepped closer. But I also know you've been happier these last few weeks than you probably have been in a long time. And I think you're good at this. Really good. Ryan shook his head. I can't just walk away from stability. I'm not asking you to. I'm offering you a partnership. Equity in the builds, flexible schedule, whatever you need to make it work. Why? Because I trust you, and because I think we work well together. Ryan looked at her, at the intensity in her eyes, the way she held herself like she was braced for rejection, but hoping for something different. He wanted to say yes. The word was right there. But so was the fear. Let me think about it, he said. Elena nodded. Fair enough. She didn't push, she just gave him space. And Ryan stood there, on the deck they'd rebuilt together, and wondered if he was brave enough to take the risk. Ryan didn't give Elena an answer that night, or the next day, or the day after that. He went back to the warehouse, back to inventory spreadsheets and shipping schedules, and the low hum of forklifts moving pallets across concrete floors. His supervisor noticed the difference in him, asked if everything was okay at home, and Ryan lied and said it was fine. But it wasn't fine. He'd tasted something at that cafe. Something he thought he'd buried 3 years ago along with Anna. The satisfaction of building something that mattered. The clarity of purpose that came with solving real problems instead of just managing other people's logistics. And Elena's offer sat in his mind like an open door he was too afraid to walk through. On Thursday evening, after putting Lily to bed, Ryan found himself pulling out his laptop and doing something he hadn't done in years. He opened his old portfolio, photos of projects from before, custom homes he'd helped build, a community center, a small office renovation that had won some minor award he'd forgotten about. He'd been good at this once. Really good. His phone rang. Elena's name lit up the screen. Ryan hesitated, then answered. Hey, did I wake you? No, just sitting here. There was a pause on her end, the sound of traffic in the background. I'm outside your place. Can I come in? Ryan sat up. You're what? I know it's weird, but I was driving past and Can I come in? 5 minutes. Ryan walked to the window and pulled the curtain back. Sure enough, Elena's car was parked at the curb, and she was standing beside it, phone to her ear, looking up at his building. Yeah, he said. Come up. 3rd floor, Unit 12. He buzzed her in and spent the next 90 seconds trying to make his living room look less like a disaster zone. He shoved Lily's toys into a bin, stacked the mail, kicked a pair of sneakers under the couch. When Elena knocked, Ryan opened the door to find her holding 2 cups of coffee and looking uncertain in a way he'd never seen before. I brought a peace offering, she said, holding up the cups. In case you were about to tell me to leave. I wasn't. Good. Ryan stepped aside and Elena walked in. She looked around. At the mismatched furniture, the crayon drawings taped to the wall, the framed photo of Anna on the bookshelf, and something in her expression softened. Nice place, she said. It's small. It's lived in. There's a difference. Ryan took one of the coffees and gestured toward the couch. They sat, leaving a careful distance between them. So, Ryan said, you drove by. I did. Coincidence? Elena smiled faintly. No. I looked up your address and decided to be invasive. Why? Because you've been avoiding me for 4 days and I wanted to know if it was the offer or if it was me. Ryan looked at her. It's not you. Then it's the offer. It's everything. Ryan set his coffee down and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're asking me to upend my entire life, to take a risk I can't afford to take. And the worst part is I actually want to say yes. So say yes. It's not that simple. Why not? Ryan gestured around the room. Because I have a kid who depends on me. Because I have a steady paycheck that keeps the lights on and food in the fridge. Because the last time I took a risk, I lost everything. Elena was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Tell me about her. Who, Lily? No, your wife. Ryan froze. People didn't ask about Anna. They danced around her. They offered condolences and changed the subject. But they didn't ask. Why? Ryan said carefully. Because I think she's the reason you're scared, and I want to understand. Ryan didn't want to talk about this. But something about the way Elena was looking at him, not with pity, just honest curiosity, made him answer. Her name was Anna, he said quietly. We met in college. She was studying architecture, and I was doing construction management. We used to argue about form versus function. Who won? She did. Always. Ryan smiled despite himself. She was stubborn and brilliant, and she saw things in a way I never could. I'd look at a building and see materials and structure. She'd see possibility. What happened? Car accident 3 years ago. Some kid ran a red light going 50 in a 35 zone. Ryan's voice went flat. She was on her way to pick up Lily from daycare. Never made it. Elena didn't say she was sorry. She didn't offer platitudes. She just listened. After she died, Ryan continued, I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't go to job sites. Couldn't build things. It all felt pointless. So I took the first stable job I could find and focused on keeping Lily's life as normal as possible. And you've been doing that ever since. Yeah. Elena leaned back against the couch, looking at the ceiling. My father built things too. Not buildings. Businesses. He started with nothing, came to this country with $200 and a GED, and built a chain of hardware stores across 3 states. Ryan glanced at her. That's where you got it. Got what? The drive. Elena's mouth quirked. Maybe, but he also taught me something else. He said the worst thing you can do is let fear make your decisions for you. She looked at Ryan. He died right before I graduated college, and I spent the next 5 years trying to prove I could do what he did. Build something that lasted. Did you? I built a company. I built a reputation. I built a life that looked successful from the outside. She paused. But I'm not sure I built anything that actually means something. Not until this cafe. Why is this one different? Because I almost let it fail. I ignored the warning signs because admitting there was a problem felt like admitting I'd failed. And then you showed up and forced me to see it. Elena turned to face him fully. You didn't let me hide from the truth, and I need that. In a partner, in someone I trust. Ryan felt something shift in his chest. This isn't just about the builds, is it? No, Elena said quietly. It's not. They sat there in silence, the weight of unspoken things hanging between them. Finally, Ryan said, I don't know if I can do this. Which part? Any of it. The partnership, the risk, whatever this is between us. What if you didn't have to figure it all out tonight? What do you mean? Elena shifted closer, closing some of the distance. What if we started small? One project. See how it goes. No long-term commitments. No pressure. That's still a risk. Everything worth doing is. Ryan wanted to argue, but he couldn't, because she was right. Okay, he heard himself say. Elena's eyes widened slightly. Okay? One project. We see how it goes. A smile broke across her face, genuine and unguarded, and Ryan felt something in him crack open. You won't regret this, Elena said. I already regret it a little. She laughed, and the sound was so unexpected and real that Ryan couldn't help but smile. They talked for another hour, working through logistics and timelines and what the partnership might actually look like. Elena promised flexibility. Ryan promised honesty about what he could and couldn't handle. And somewhere in the middle of planning, they stopped being careful with each other and started being comfortable. When Elena finally left, Ryan stood in the doorway and watched her drive away. Then he closed the door, leaned against it, and let himself feel the terrifying, exhilarating weight of what he'd just agreed to. He was doing this, and he had no idea if it would work. The cafe's grand reopening was scheduled for a Friday night, 3 weeks after the final inspection. Elena had planned everything down to the minute: catering, live music, a guest list that included local business owners, food bloggers, and a journalist from the city magazine. Ryan wasn't supposed to be there. His job had been the rebuild, and that was done. But Elena had insisted, and Lily had been excited about the idea of seeing the place all lit up, so Ryan said yes. They arrived just after sunset. The cafe was transformed. The deck, once a liability, now solid and beautiful, was strung with lights that reflected off the river. Tables were set with candles and small arrangements of flowers. The interior glowed warm and inviting, and a jazz trio played softly in the corner. Lily's eyes went wide. Whoa! Yeah, Ryan agreed. Whoa! Elena spotted them from across the room and immediately made her way over. She was wearing a dress, simple, black, elegant, and Ryan realized with a start that he'd never seen her in anything but work clothes. You came, she said, smiling at Lily first, then Ryan. Wouldn't miss it, Ryan said. Liar. You tried to cancel twice. Only once. Elena laughed and crouched down to Lily's level. What do you think? It's so pretty, Lily said, like a fairy tale. You helped make it happen, you know. That drawing you gave me, I hung it in my office. Lily beamed. Elena stood and looked at Ryan, and there was something in her expression, pride maybe, or gratitude, that made his chest tighten. Thank you, she said quietly, for all of it. I didn't do that much. You did everything. Before Ryan could respond, someone called Elena's name from across the room. She squeezed his arm briefly and then was gone, pulled into a conversation with a woman who looked important. Ryan found a table near the edge of the deck and settled in with Lily. A server brought them water and menus, and Lily immediately started pointing at things she wanted to try. Can I get the pasta? Sure. And dessert? We'll see. That means yes, Ryan smiled. That means we'll see. They ordered, and while they waited, Ryan watched Elena work the room. She moved with ease, shaking hands and laughing at jokes and making everyone feel like they were the most important person there. It was a skill Ryan didn't have and didn't particularly want, but watching her do it was something else. Dad? Ryan turned back to Lily. Yeah? Do you like her? Ryan blinked. Who, Elena? Yeah. She's nice. Lily gave him a look that was far too knowing for a 7-year-old. That's not what I asked. Ryan felt heat creep up his neck. Where's this coming from? You smile when she's around. You don't smile like that with other people. Ryan didn't know what to say to that, because she wasn't wrong. It's okay if you like her, Lily continued. I think she's nice too. It's complicated, Bug. You always say that. Because it's always true. Lily shrugged and went back to coloring on the kids' menu the server had brought. But Ryan could feel her watching him out of the corner of her eye. Their food arrived, and they ate while the party swirled around them. Ryan had just finished his second beer when Miguel appeared at their table, looking uncomfortable in a button-down shirt. Cole, Miguel said by way of greeting. Miguel, mind if I sit? Ryan gestured to the empty chair, and Miguel dropped into it heavily. He looked at Lily, then at Ryan, then out at the deck. It's solid work, Miguel said finally. Ryan waited. I was wrong, Miguel continued, the words clearly costing him something. About the shortcuts, about you. I let my pride get in the way, and it almost cost Elena everything. Ryan set down his fork. You here to apologize? I'm here to say you were right, and I should have listened. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was close enough. Thanks, Ryan said. Miguel nodded and stood. Enjoy the party. He left before Ryan could say anything else. Lily looked up at Ryan. Was that man mad at you? He was, but I think we're okay now. Good. I don't like it when people are mad at you. Ryan reached over and ruffled her hair. Me neither, Bug. As the night wore on, the crowd thinned. Families with young kids left first, then the older couples. By 10 o'clock, only a handful of people remained, and Lily had fallen asleep with her head on Ryan's shoulder. Elena appeared beside their table, looking tired but happy. She's out. Yeah, it's past her bedtime. You should get her home. Ryan started to stand, carefully adjusting Lily so he wouldn't wake her. Elena walked them to the parking lot, her heels clicking softly on the pavement. At Ryan's truck, he managed to get Lily into her booster seat without fully waking her. She mumbled something incoherent and then settled back into sleep. When Ryan turned around, Elena was standing close, closer than he'd expected. Tonight was perfect, she said softly. You did good. We did good. Ryan didn't correct her. Elena looked up at him, and in the dim glow of the streetlight, Ryan saw something in her expression that made his pulse kick up. I know this is complicated, Elena said, and I know you're not looking for anything. But I need to say this before I lose my nerve. Elena, I like you, Ryan. More than I should. More than is probably smart. She took a breath. And I don't know what to do about it. Ryan's mind went blank. Then it went into overdrive. 1,000 thoughts crashed together, fear and want and the crushing weight of what it might mean to let someone in again. I don't know either, he said finally. That's honest. It's all I've got. Elena smiled faintly. Then it's enough. She stepped back, putting distance between them again. Go home. Get some sleep. We'll figure the rest out later. Ryan wanted to say something more, something that matched the honesty she'd just given him, but the words wouldn't come. So he just nodded and got in his truck. As he drove away, he watched Elena in the rear-view mirror, standing alone in the parking lot, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Hope and terror, both at once. The following week, Elena called with details about the first new project. A location in the Arts District, an old warehouse she'd bought at auction with plans to convert it into a cafe and event space. It's a mess, she said over the phone, but it's got good bones. When do you want me to look at it? Tomorrow? I know it's short notice, but the city's pushing for plans by the end of the month. Ryan checked his calendar. He had the day off, and Diane had already agreed to watch Lily. Tomorrow works. They met at the warehouse at 9 in the morning. The building was exactly what Elena had promised, a gutted shell with exposed brick, broken windows, and a roof that had seen better days. But she was right about the bones. The structure was solid, and the space had potential. They spent 2 hours walking through it, Ryan taking measurements and notes, while Elena sketched rough ideas on a tablet. I'm thinking open floor plan, Elena said, gesturing to the main room. Cafe on one side, event space on the other. Maybe a movable partition so we can close it off for private rentals. You'll need permits for occupancy changes. Already started the application. And the roof needs work. I know. How much are we talking? Ryan did some quick math. 15, maybe 20,000? Depends on how much structural damage there is underneath. Elena made a note. Doable. They kept working, falling into the easy rhythm they'd developed at the first cafe. Elena would throw out ideas, and Ryan would tell her what was feasible and what wasn't. She challenged him when she thought he was being too cautious, and he pushed back when her vision outpaced the budget. It felt good. Better than good. It felt right. Around noon, they took a break and sat on the front steps, sharing a sandwich Elena had brought. Can I ask you something? Ryan said. Sure. Why hospitality? You could have built anything. Why cafes? Elena was quiet for a moment, chewing thoughtfully. Because they're neutral ground. Banks and offices and retail stores all have agendas. But cafes, they're just spaces where people exist. They meet, they work, they sit alone with their thoughts. There's something honest about that. Ryan nodded slowly. I get that. Do you? Yeah, construction's the same way. You're building something people will use without thinking about it. If you do it right, they never notice. It just works. Elena looked at him, and there was something in her eyes that made Ryan's chest tighten. You really love this, don't you? I did. Once. You still do. You're just afraid to admit it. Ryan didn't argue because she was right. They finished eating in comfortable silence, and then Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this, she said, standing and walking a few feet away. Ryan watched her pace, her voice clipped and professional. Whatever the call was about, it wasn't good. When she hung up, her expression was tight. Problem? Ryan asked. The contractor I hired for the second location just backed out. Said the timeline's too aggressive and he's not willing to take the risk. When were you supposed to break ground? 3 weeks. Ryan whistled low. That's tight. It's impossible without someone running point. Elena looked at him. I know what you're going to say. I'll do it. Elena stopped mid-sentence. What? I'll run it. Both projects. Whatever you need. Ryan, you said one project. I know what I said. Ryan stood and faced her. But I've been thinking about what you said. About fear-making decisions. And you're right. I've been letting it run my life for 3 years. He paused. I don't want to do that anymore. Elena stared at him, and for once she looked genuinely surprised. Are you sure? No, but I'm doing it anyway. A smile spread across her face, slow and genuine and something close to radiant. Okay then. Okay. They stood there on the steps of a half-ruined warehouse, grinning at each other like idiots. And Ryan felt the last piece of resistance inside him crumble. He was all in. Immerse. The next 6 weeks were chaos. Ryan quit his warehouse job with 2 weeks' notice, which his supervisor took better than expected. He hired Diane full-time to help with Lily, negotiated a schedule that let him do school drop-offs and most pickups, and threw himself into the builds with an intensity he'd forgotten he had. The Arts District project moved fast. Ryan assembled a crew of guys he'd worked with years ago, people he trusted to do quality work without cutting corners. Elena secured the permits in record time, and by week 3, they were ahead of schedule. The second location was harder. The property was in rough shape, and the previous contractor had left behind half-finished work that needed to be torn out and redone. Ryan spent long days on site, troubleshooting problems and managing a crew that didn't know him yet. But slowly, it came together. Elena was there almost every day, splitting her time between the 2 projects and her other properties. She brought coffee in the mornings and Chinese takeout in the evenings, and somewhere in the middle of coordinating schedules and arguing over tile choices, the line between professional and personal started to blur. It wasn't dramatic. There was no single moment where things shifted. It was smaller than that. The way Elena's hand would brush his when she handed him plans. The way Ryan found himself looking for her car in the parking lot. The way they started texting about things that had nothing to do with work. One night, after a particularly brutal 14-hour day, Ryan was packing up his tools when Elena appeared beside him. You look dead on your feet, she said. I feel dead on my feet. Come on, I'm buying you dinner. Elena, I need to get home. Lily's with Diane until 8. You told me this morning. She crossed her arms. Don't make me pull rank. Ryan was too tired to argue. They ended up at a small Italian place 2 blocks from the Arts District site. It was quiet and dimly lit, and Ryan realized halfway through his pasta that this felt suspiciously like a date. This is a date, isn't it? He said. Elena looked up from her wine, feigning innocence. Is it? You tell me. Would it be a problem if it was? Ryan considered that. A month ago, the answer would have been yes. But now? No, he said. It wouldn't be a problem. Elena smiled. Good, because I've been wanting to do this for weeks, and I was running out of excuses. They talked through dinner about the projects, about Lily, about Elena's plans to expand into 2 more cities. And then, as they were finishing dessert, Elena said something that stopped Ryan cold. I think I'm falling for you. Ryan set down his fork. Elena, I know, it's too soon, it's complicated, you're not ready. She met his eyes. But I needed to say it anyway. Ryan's heart was pounding. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just needed you to know. They left the restaurant in silence, and Ryan walked Elena to her car. She unlocked it, but didn't get in right away. I'm scared, Ryan said finally. Of what? Of screwing this up, of letting you down, of Lily getting attached, and then losing someone else. Elena stepped closer. I'm scared too, but I'd rather be scared and try than safe and regret it. Ryan looked at her, really looked, and saw everything he'd been afraid to want. Someone strong and honest and willing to take a risk on him. Okay, he said quietly. Okay what? Okay, let's try. Elena's face lit up, and before Ryan could second-guess himself, she kissed him. It was brief and soft and tasted like wine and hope. When she pulled back, Ryan was smiling despite himself. That was long overdue, Elena finished. Ryan laughed. Yeah, it was. They stood there for another moment, neither quite ready to leave. Then Elena got in her car, and Ryan watched her drive away, feeling lighter than he had in years. He texted Diane that he was on his way and drove home with the windows down, letting the cool night air clear his head. When he got home, Lily was already asleep, and Diane left with a knowing smile that made Ryan suspect she'd figured out more than he'd said. Ryan checked on Lily, still out cold, clutching her favorite stuffed rabbit, and then collapsed onto his own bed. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. Thank you for tonight. Ryan smiled and typed back. Thank you for being patient, always. He set the phone down and stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of what he'd just started. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. And for the first time in 3 years, Ryan let himself believe it might actually work. The first time Lily met Elena outside of work, it was an accident. Ryan had planned to keep the 2 parts of his life separate for a while longer, give things time to solidify before introducing the woman he was seeing to his daughter. But plans had a way of falling apart when you were juggling 2 construction sites and a 7-year-old with opinions. It was a Saturday morning, and Diane had called in sick. Ryan's sister was out of town, and he had a critical delivery scheduled at the Arts District site that he couldn't miss. So he did the only thing he could. He brought Lily with him. She'd been to the site before, but never on a weekend, never when it was this quiet. She wandered around with her backpack full of books and snacks, seemingly content to entertain herself while Ryan signed off on materials and argued with the lumber supplier about a shipment discrepancy. He'd just finished the inspection when Elena's car pulled up. Ryan's stomach dropped. Elena got out, looking casual in jeans and a sweater, her hair down for once instead of pulled back. She spotted Ryan and smiled, then noticed Lily sitting on a stack of plywood 20 feet away. I didn't know you'd be here, Ryan said as Elena approached. Last-minute decision. I wanted to check the tile samples before they get installed. She glanced at Lily again. Is that okay? Yeah, it's fine. Ryan ran a hand through his hair. Lily, come here for a second. Lily hopped down from her perch and walked over, eyeing Elena with the kind of curiosity kids reserve for people who might be important. Lily, you remember Elena, Ryan said, from the cafe. Hi, Lily said, then immediately added, You're the one my dad likes. Ryan felt his face go hot. Lily. What? You do? Elena laughed, and the sound was so genuine that Ryan felt some of his panic ease. It's nice to see you again, Lily. Lily studied her for a moment, then apparently decided Elena had passed some internal test because she smiled. Do you want to see what I'm reading? I'd love to. They walked over to Lily's makeshift camp, and Ryan watched as his daughter pulled out a worn copy of some fantasy novel and started explaining the plot in exhaustive detail. Elena listened with the kind of attention most adults didn't bother giving kids, asking questions and nodding in all the right places. Ryan should have been working. He had a dozen things to check off before the day ended, but he couldn't stop watching the two of them together. The ease with which Elena crouched down to Lily's level, the way Lily's face lit up when Elena asked about her favorite character. It was such a small moment, but it felt enormous. After a while, Elena excused herself to look at the tile samples, and Lily wandered back to Ryan. "She's nice," Lily said. "Yeah, she is." "Is she your girlfriend?" Ryan nearly choked. "Where did you hear that word?" "School. Megan's sister has a boyfriend, and she talks about him all the time." Lily tilted her head. "So is she?" Ryan didn't know how to answer that. He and Elena hadn't put a label on whatever this was. They'd been careful, taking things slow, figuring it out as they went. "It's complicated, Bug," he said. Lily rolled her eyes. "You always say that." "Because it's always true. I think she should be your girlfriend. She makes you happy." Ryan looked down at his daughter, at her serious little face, and felt something crack open in his chest. "You think so?" "Yeah. You smile more now, and you don't look sad all the time." Ryan hadn't realized Lily had been paying that much attention, hadn't realized she'd noticed the weight he'd been carrying. "What about you?" Ryan asked quietly. "How would you feel if Elena and if we were together?" Lily thought about it for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. Then she shrugged. "I'd be okay with it, as long as she's nice to you." "She is." "Then it's okay." It was such a simple answer, so much simpler than Ryan had expected. But that was Lily. She saw things clearly in a way adults had forgotten how to do. Elena came back a few minutes later, and the three of them ended up grabbing lunch at a burger place nearby. It wasn't planned, and it definitely wasn't a formal introduction, but somehow it worked. Lily chattered away about school and her friends, and Elena asked questions that weren't patronizing. Ryan mostly just watched, feeling like he was witnessing something shift into place. When they finally parted ways in the parking lot, Elena caught Ryan's arm. "That went okay, right?" she asked, and for the first time Ryan heard uncertainty in her voice. "It went more than okay." "She's great, Ryan. Really." "I know." Elena smiled, then leaned in and kissed him quickly. Nothing dramatic, just a brief press of lips that felt natural and right. When Ryan pulled back, he saw Lily watching from the truck, grinning like she'd just won something. He was in so much trouble. The next few weeks blurred together in a mess of construction timelines, permit delays, and stolen moments with Elena between job sites. The Arts District Cafe was nearing completion, and the second location was finally taking shape. Ryan had stopped sleeping more than 5 hours a night, running on coffee and adrenaline and the sharp satisfaction of watching something broken become whole. But the cracks were starting to show. It started small. A missed call from Lily's school because Ryan had been in a meeting with the city inspector. A forgotten parent-teacher conference that Diane had to cover. A night when Ryan came home so late that Lily was already asleep, and he realized he hadn't actually seen her awake in 2 days. He told himself it was temporary, that once the projects were finished, things would settle. But deep down, he knew he was lying. The breaking point came on a Wednesday. Ryan was at the second site dealing with a plumbing issue that had materialized out of nowhere when his phone rang. Lily's school. Again. "Mr. Cole, we need you to come pick up Lily. She's in the nurse's office." Ryan's heart stopped. "Is she hurt?" "No, but she's very upset. She says her stomach hurts, but the nurse thinks it might be anxiety." Ryan closed his eyes. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He left the site without explaining, drove 15 over the speed limit, and arrived at the school to find Lily curled up on a cot in the nurse's office, her face blotchy from crying. "Hey, Bug," Ryan said softly, sitting down beside her. Lily looked at him, and the relief in her eyes was immediately replaced by anger. "You took forever." "I came as fast as I could." "You're always working. You're never home." The words hit like a punch. Ryan reached for her hand, but Lily pulled away. "Lily, I don't feel good. I want to go home." Ryan signed her out and drove her back to the apartment in silence. She went straight to her room and closed the door, and Ryan stood in the hallway feeling like the worst father on the planet. He texted Elena, "Can't make dinner tonight. Lily's sick." Her reply came immediately. "Is she okay?" "Physically, yeah. Everything else, not so much. Do you need anything? Ryan stared at the message, then typed, I need to figure out how to do this without screwing up my kid. Elena didn't respond right away, and Ryan didn't blame her. What was she supposed to say to that? He spent the rest of the afternoon sitting outside Lily's door, listening to her move around inside. When she finally emerged for dinner, her eyes were red but dry. They ate mac and cheese in silence. I'm sorry, Ryan said finally. Lily poked at her food. For what? For not being around as much. For making you feel like you're not important. You didn't make me feel that way. You're always busy now. I know, and I'm trying to balance everything, but I'm not doing a great job. Lily looked up at him, and her voice was small when she spoke. Do you like working more than being with me? Ryan's throat tightened. No, never. Then why do you do it so much? It was a fair question, and Ryan didn't have a good answer. Because I thought I was building something better for us, he said slowly. But maybe I got so focused on the building part that I forgot about the US part. Lily was quiet for a moment, pushing a noodle around her plate. I like Elena, but I like you more, and I miss you. Ryan felt something break inside him. He got up, walked around the table, and pulled Lily into a hug. She resisted for about half a second before wrapping her arms around his waist and holding on tight. I miss you too, Bug, Ryan said quietly, and I'm going to fix this. I promise. He meant it. He just had no idea how. That night, after Lily finally went to sleep, Ryan called Elena. She answered on the first ring. Hey, how is she? She's okay, just struggling. With what? With me not being around, with everything changing. Ryan leaned back against the couch, exhausted. I think I bit off more than I can handle. Elena was quiet for a moment. Do you want to pull back from the projects? No, maybe. I don't know. Ryan rubbed his face. I don't want to let you down. You're not letting me down. But you can't keep doing this if it's hurting Lily. I know. So what do you want to do? Ryan didn't have an answer. He wanted to keep building. He wanted to be present for his daughter. He wanted to make this thing with Elena work, but wanting all of it didn't mean he could have it. I need to think, he said finally. Okay, take all the time you need. Elena, I mean it, Ryan. This isn't just about the work. If you need to step back, we'll figure it out. Ryan wanted to believe her, but he also knew how much these projects meant to Elena, how much she'd invested, not just financially, but emotionally. I'll call you tomorrow, he said. Okay, get some sleep. After they hung up, Ryan sat in the dark living room and tried to figure out what the hell he was doing. He'd spent 3 years playing it safe, keeping his world small and manageable. And then Elena had shown up and offered him something bigger, something that felt like purpose and possibility, and all the things he thought he'd lost. But maybe bigger wasn't better. Maybe he'd been right to keep things small. His phone buzzed, a text from Elena. Whatever you decide, I'm not going anywhere. Ryan stared at the message for a long time. Then he got up, checked on Lily one more time, and went to bed. The next morning, Ryan called Elena and asked her to meet him at the Arts District site. She was already there when he arrived, sitting on the front steps with 2 coffees. Thanks for coming, Ryan said, taking one of the cups. Of course. They sat in silence for a moment, and then Ryan said, I can't keep doing this. Not like this. Elena's expression didn't change, but he saw something tighten in her shoulders. Okay. I need to scale back, be on site less, focus more on Lily. That's fair. But I don't want to quit. I just need to find a way to make this work without sacrificing my kid. Elena set her coffee down and turned to face him. So let's figure it out. How? We hire someone to help. Someone who can handle the day-to-day so you're only needed for the big decisions. You still oversee everything, but you're not on site 12 hours a day. Ryan blinked. You'd be okay with that? Ryan, I don't need you to kill yourself for this. I need you to be present. And if that means bringing someone else on, then that's what we do. That'll cut into the budget. I don't care about the budget. I care about you not burning out. She paused. And I care about Lily being okay. Ryan felt something loosen in his chest. You mean that? Of course I mean it. He looked at her, at the certainty in her eyes. the lack of resentment or frustration, and felt a wave of gratitude so strong it nearly knocked him over. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not making me choose." Elena reached over and took his hand. "I'm not going to make you choose between me and your daughter. That's not how this works." Ryan squeezed her hand, and for the first time in days, he felt like he could breathe. They spent the next hour brainstorming solutions. Elena knew a project manager from another build who might be available. Ryan could shift to a consulting role, reviewing plans, handling inspections, making key decisions without being on site every day. It wasn't perfect, but it was workable. By the time they finished, Ryan felt something close to hope. "We're going to make this work," Elena said as they stood to leave. "Yeah," Ryan agreed. "We are Tiptikat." Over the next 2 weeks, things started to shift back into balance. Elena hired the project manager, a woman named Carla, who had 20 years of experience and didn't take crap from anyone. Ryan trained her on both sites, handed off the daily operations, and stepped back into a role that let him actually sleep at night. He started picking Lily up from school again, started having dinner with her every night, started being present instead of just physically there, and slowly, Lily started to relax. One evening, while they were doing homework at the kitchen table, Lily looked up and said, "I'm glad you're home more." "Me too, Bug." "Does this mean you're not going to work with Elena anymore?" "No, I'm still working with her, just differently." Lily nodded, considering that. "That's good. I think she makes you happy." "She does." "Then you should keep her." Ryan laughed. "I'll try." That weekend, Ryan invited Elena over for dinner. It was the first time she'd been to the apartment when it wasn't a crisis, and Ryan found himself weirdly nervous as he cleaned and cooked and tried to make everything feel normal. Lily helped by setting the table with mismatched plates and folding napkins into lopsided triangles. When Elena arrived, she brought flowers, daisies for Lily, who lit up like it was Christmas, and a bottle of wine for Ryan. Dinner was chaotic in the best way. Lily dominated the conversation, telling Elena about her school play and her friend drama and her opinions on everything from pizza toppings to superhero movies. Elena listened and laughed and asked follow-up questions, and Ryan watched the two of them together and felt something settle deep in his chest. This was what he'd been afraid of. This connection, this blending of lives. But it didn't feel scary anymore. It felt right. After dinner, Lily insisted on showing Elena her room, and Ryan cleaned up while listening to their voices drift down the hallway. When they came back, Lily was holding Elena's hand. "Dad, can Elena read me a bedtime story?" Ryan glanced at Elena, who looked genuinely touched. "If that's okay with her." "I'd love to," Elena said. Ryan stayed in the kitchen, washing dishes and trying not to eavesdrop as Elena read some chapter book about dragons and magic. But he couldn't help smiling when he heard Lily laugh at something Elena said. When Elena emerged 20 minutes later, she looked soft in a way Ryan had never seen. "She's out," Elena said quietly. "She likes you." "I like her too, a lot." Ryan dried his hands and walked over to where Elena stood in the doorway. "Thank you for this, for being patient with all of it. You don't have to thank me." "I do, because this—" Ryan gestured around the apartment toward Lily's room. "This is my whole world, and letting you in was terrifying." Elena stepped closer. "And now?" "Now it feels like maybe my world just got a little bigger. In a good way." Elena smiled and kissed him, slow and sweet, and Ryan felt the last piece of his resistance fall away. When they finally pulled apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. "I love you." Ryan's breath caught. He hadn't been expecting that, hadn't been ready for it. But when he looked at Elena, at the vulnerability in her eyes, the hope, he realized he felt it too. "I love you too," he said. And this time, he wasn't afraid. The Arts District Cafe opened 2 weeks later to a packed house. The space looked incredible. Exposed brick, industrial lighting, a bar made from reclaimed wood that Ryan had sourced himself. Elena had curated every detail, and it showed. Ryan stood near the back with Lily, watching the crowd mill around and feeling a pride that had nothing to do with ego and everything to do with knowing they'd built something that would last. Elena found them halfway through the night, her face flushed with success. "This is amazing," Ryan said. "It's ours," Elena corrected. "We did this together." Lily tugged on Elena's sleeve. Can I have more of those little cakes? Elena laughed. Absolutely. Come on, I'll get you some. Ryan watched them walk off together, Lily chattering away and Elena listening with that same focused attention she gave everything. And for the first time in 3 years, Ryan let himself believe that he deserved this. The work, the partnership, the love, all of it. 6 months after the Arts District Cafe opened, Ryan stood in the parking lot of the second location and realized he'd forgotten what it felt like to be this tired and this content at the same time. The build had taken longer than expected. There'd been structural issues they hadn't anticipated, a 2-week delay when the city changed the fire code mid-construction, and one memorable afternoon when a water main burst and flooded the entire first floor. But it was done now, finished, ready for the final inspection that would happen in less than 12 hours. Carla was inside doing a last walkthrough with her clipboard, checking off every detail with the kind of precision that had made Ryan grateful Elena had insisted on hiring her. Through the window, he could see Elena talking to the interior designer, her hands moving as she explained something, probably adjusting some small detail no one else would notice, but that would bother her if it wasn't right. Ryan's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Good luck tomorrow. You're going to do great. Love you. He smiled. Diane must have helped her with the spelling, but the sentiment was all Lily. He texted back. Thanks, Bug. See you tonight. The plan was to have dinner at home, just the three of them now, most nights. Elena had started keeping a toothbrush at the apartment. Lily had started calling her by her first name without the awkward pause. And Ryan had stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop. Mostly. Elena came out of the building and Ryan could tell from her face that something was wrong. What happened? The chandelier in the main room. It's 2 inches off center. Ryan waited for more, but that seemed to be it. That's what you're worried about? It's going to bother me every time I look at it. Elena, no one's going to notice. I'll notice. Ryan walked over and put his hands on her shoulders. It's perfect. The whole place is perfect. You need to let it be done. Elena looked up at him, and he saw the exhaustion in her eyes. She'd been running herself ragged for months, juggling this build with 3 other properties and a pitch to investors for her next expansion. She was good at what she did, but she wasn't invincible. When's the last time you slept more than 5 hours? Ryan asked. I don't know. Tuesday? That was 4 days ago. I'll sleep when this is done. It is done. Elena opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. She leaned forward until her forehead rested against his chest. I'm terrified it's not going to pass inspection. It's going to pass. You don't know that. I do, because we built it right, because we didn't cut corners, because you obsessed over every single detail. Ryan pulled back enough to look at her. You need to trust the work. I'm not good at that. I know, but you're going to have to try. Elena managed a tired smile. When did you become the reasonable one? Someone had to. They stood there for a moment, and then Elena's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and sighed. Investor call. I have to take this. Go. I'll lock up here. She kissed him quickly and walked to her car, already answering. Ryan watched her go, then turned back to the building. It really was beautiful. Clean lines, warm lighting, an open floor plan that felt inviting without being cavernous. They'd taken something broken and made it whole, and no matter what happened tomorrow, that meant something. Carla came out a few minutes later, locking the door behind her. We're good, she said. I checked everything twice. Unless the inspector's looking for reasons to fail us, we're passing. Thanks for everything, Carla. I know this one was rough. She shrugged. They're all rough. But this one was worth it. She paused. You and Elena make a good team. Ryan nodded. Yeah, we do. Carla got in her truck and drove off, and Ryan stood alone in the parking lot as the sun set. His phone buzzed again, but this time it was Elena. Investor wants to meet next week about the expansion. 3 more locations. Ryan stared at the message. 3 more locations meant 3 more builds. More time, more pressure, more of everything they'd just spent 6 months drowning in. He typed back. That's great. We should talk about it. I know what you're thinking. What am I thinking? That it's too much, that we can't handle it. Ryan paused, then wrote, I'm thinking we need to make sure we're doing this for the right reasons. There was a long pause before her reply came. You're right. Let's talk tonight. Yaku mas tiamas Hot. That conversation didn't happen that night because Lily had a meltdown over a school project that was due the next day and somehow hadn't been mentioned until 8 o'clock. Ryan spent 2 hours helping her build a diorama of the solar system out of foam balls and paint, while Elena sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, responding to emails. By the time they got Lily to bed, they were both too exhausted to do anything but collapse on the couch. Rain check on the serious talk? Elena asked. Yeah, tomorrow, after the inspection. Deal. Elena fell asleep with her head on Ryan's shoulder, and he sat there in the quiet apartment, thinking about the past 6 months, about how much had changed and how much he'd been afraid of that change. He'd been so certain that letting someone in would mean losing something. That love was a zero-sum game where caring about Elena meant having less to give Lily. But it hadn't worked that way. If anything, Lily seemed happier now, more settled. She had two adults who showed up for her instead of one person trying to be enough. And Ryan had learned something he should have known all along. You didn't have to carry everything alone. That wasn't strength. It was just stubbornness dressed up as martyrdom. The next morning, the inspector showed up at 9 sharp. He was a man in his 60s who'd seen everything and wasn't impressed by anything. He walked through the building with his tablet, making notes, asking questions, testing railings, and checking outlets. Ryan and Elena followed at a respectful distance, not hovering, but close enough to answer if needed. 2 hours later, the inspector finished his final check and turned to face them. You're approved. Elena's knees actually buckled slightly. Ryan caught her elbow. No issues? Elena asked. A few minor things I'm noting for your records, but nothing that affects occupancy. You're clear to open. Thank you, Ryan said, shaking the man's hand. After the inspector left, Elena turned to Ryan, and the relief on her face was so raw that Ryan pulled her into a hug without thinking. We did it, she said into his shoulder. You did it. We did it, she corrected. They stood there for a moment, and then Elena's phone rang. She looked at the screen and groaned. It's the investor. I have to take it. I'll start coordinating with the opening team. Elena answered the call and walked outside, and Ryan got to work. What? The opening was scheduled for 2 weeks later, which gave them just enough time to hire staff, stock inventory, and work out the inevitable last-minute problems that cropped up. Ryan had learned by now that no opening ever went smoothly, and this one was no exception. 3 days before launch, their head chef quit. Elena had to scramble to find a replacement, eventually poaching someone from one of her other locations. 2 days before, the espresso machine they'd ordered arrived broken. Ryan spent 6 hours on the phone with the supplier getting a replacement expedited. By the time opening night arrived, Ryan felt like he'd aged a year. But when the doors opened and people started filing in, all the stress melted away. The space looked incredible. The food was excellent. The crowd was enthusiastic. And Elena, standing near the bar in a dress that made Ryan forget how to think, looked happier than he'd ever seen her. Lily was there too, wearing a dress she'd insisted on picking out herself, complete with sparkly shoes that were already giving her blisters. She'd appointed herself unofficial greeter and was shaking hands with people like a tiny politician. She's something else, Carla said, appearing at Ryan's elbow with a glass of wine. That's one way to put it. Takes after you, Ryan laughed. She's better than me. Maybe, but the stubbornness is definitely genetic. They watched Lily charm a group of investors, and Ryan felt that particular combination of pride and terror that came with realizing your kid was growing up. Elena found him later, after the crowd had thinned and Lily had crashed on a bench in the back, shoes off, fast asleep. We should get her home, Elena said quietly. Yeah, but neither of them moved right away. They stood there looking at the cafe, at the thing they'd built together, and Ryan felt something settle into place. Elena, he said. Yeah? We need to talk about the expansion. She tensed slightly. Now? Now. They stepped outside where it was quieter. The night air was cool and the street was mostly empty. I've been thinking about it, Ryan said. About what you said. 3 more locations. And I think we should do it, but differently. Elena frowned. What do you mean? I mean, we hire more help. We don't try to run everything ourselves. We build a team we can trust and we let them handle the day-to-day stuff. That's going to cost more. I know, but it's going to keep us sane. And it's going to mean I can still be there for Lily and for you. Elena was quiet for a moment, processing. You really think we can do that? I think we have to. Otherwise, we're going to burn out, and everything we've built is going to fall apart. She nodded slowly. Okay, we do it your way. Our way, Ryan corrected. Elena smiled. Our way. They went back inside to wake Lily, and as Ryan carried his sleepy daughter to the car, he caught Elena watching them with an expression he couldn't quite read. Later, after they'd gotten Lily home and into bed, Elena sat on the edge of Ryan's couch and said, I want to tell you something. Ryan sat beside her. Okay. I've been thinking about what comes next. Not just with the business. With us. Ryan's heart started beating faster. What about us? Elena took a breath. I want this to be permanent, not just dating or whatever we're calling it. I want to build a life with you and Lily. A real one. Ryan stared at her. Elena, I know it's fast. I know we've only been together 8 months, but I'm 33 years old, and I've never felt like this about anyone. I don't want to wait just because we're supposed to. Ryan's mind was racing. He'd thought about this, late at night when he couldn't sleep, in quiet moments when he watched Elena with Lily. But thinking about it and hearing her say it out loud were two different things. What does permanent look like to you? He asked carefully. I don't know exactly. Moving in together, maybe. Or me selling my place and buying something bigger for all of us. Getting married eventually, if that's something you want. She paused. I just know I don't want to keep living in two separate worlds that only overlap sometimes. Ryan reached for her hand. I want that too. Yeah? Yeah. But we need to do it right, for Lily's sake. What does that mean? It means we tell her first. We make sure she's okay with it. We don't just spring it on her. Elena nodded. Okay, when? Soon. But not tonight. Tonight, I just want to be here with you. They sat together in the quiet apartment, not talking, just being. And Ryan let himself imagine what that permanent life might look like. Waking up next to Elena every morning, coming home to her every night, building not just cafes, but a family. It was terrifying. But it was also the first thing that had felt truly right in years. They told Lily 2 weeks later on a Saturday morning over pancakes. Ryan had been nervous about how to bring it up, but Elena had suggested being direct. Kids appreciated honesty, she'd said, and she was right. Lily, Elena and I want to talk to you about something, Ryan started. Lily looked up from her syrup-drenched plate, immediately suspicious. Am I in trouble? No, nothing like that. Elena took over. We wanted to know how you'd feel if I moved in here, with you and your dad. Lily blinked. Then she looked at Ryan. Like, all the time? Yeah, Bug. All the time. Lily thought about this for a moment, her face serious. Would you sleep in Dad's room? Elena's face went slightly red, but she nodded. Yes. And would you do stuff with us? Like family stuff? If you wanted me to, yes. Lily looked down at her plate, and Ryan felt his chest tighten. They'd talked about how to handle different reactions, but he hadn't actually prepared himself for Lily to say no. Then Lily looked up, and she was smiling. Okay. Ryan blinked. Okay? Yeah, I think it would be good. The apartment's kind of small for 3 people, though. Elena laughed, a sound of pure relief. We'd probably look for a bigger place. With a yard? Maybe. And a dog? Ryan held up a hand. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. But Lily was already planning, talking a mile a minute about what kind of dog they should get and what the new house should look like. Elena caught Ryan's eye across the table, and he saw the same overwhelmed joy he was feeling reflected back at him. They were really doing this. Finding a house took 3 months. Ryan had forgotten how exhausting house hunting was. The endless showings, the negotiations, the compromises required when 3 people had different priorities. Lily wanted a big backyard. Elena wanted a kitchen that didn't make her want to cry. Ryan wanted something they could actually afford. They finally found a place that checked most of the boxes. A 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood with good schools, a decent yard, and a kitchen that Elena declared workable. The mortgage was more than Ryan had ever imagined paying, but with both their incomes and the equity partnership Elena Wu had formalized, it was doable. They closed in early December, right before the holidays. Moving day was chaos. Lily supervised from her new bedroom, directing where boxes should go with the authority of a general. Elena's furniture didn't quite fit with Ryan's, so they spent a weekend rearranging and arguing good-naturedly about what stayed and what went to storage. By the time they collapsed into bed that first night, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, Ryan felt completely drained and completely happy. "We have a house," Elena said into the darkness. "We have a house," Ryan agreed, "with a yard. And a mortgage that's going to give me nightmares." Elena laughed and rolled over to face him. "Worth it?" Ryan thought about everything that had led here. The cafe deck that had nearly collapsed, the rebuilds, the late nights, and the stress and the fear. The moment he'd decided to stop playing it safe and take a risk on something, someone that mattered. "Yeah," he said. "Worth it." Mom. Christmas came, and for the first time since Anna died, Ryan felt like they were actually celebrating instead of just going through the motions. They decorated the house together, Lily insisting on putting the star on top of the tree, while Elena held the ladder and Ryan supervised from below. They baked cookies that were slightly burnt but tasted fine. They watched holiday movies and drank hot chocolate and did all the things that normal families did. On Christmas morning, Lily opened her presents with the kind of enthusiasm that made the month of shopping worth it. But the best moment came when she opened a small box from Elena and found a silver bracelet with 3 charms, a coffee cup, a hammer, and a tiny letter L. "For the 3 of us," Elena explained, "the work we do and the family we are." Lily's eyes welled up, and she threw her arms around Elena's neck. "I love it." "I love you," Elena said, and Ryan saw her blink back tears. Ryan watched his daughter and the woman he loved holding each other, and felt something unlock in his chest. For 3 years, he'd been so focused on survival that he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually live, to be present, to let joy in alongside the grief. Anna would have liked Elena, he thought suddenly. She would have appreciated her directness, her refusal to settle, the way she pushed Ryan to be better without making him feel inadequate. And more than that, Anna would have wanted this for them. For Lily to have someone else who loved her. For Ryan to find happiness again. It didn't erase the loss. Nothing would. But it made the weight of it bearable. Spring came, and with it the beginning of construction on the 3 new locations Elena's investors had funded. True to his word, Ryan helped assemble a team to run the builds. Carla as lead project manager, 2 assistant managers he'd worked with before, and a rotating crew of contractors they trusted. Ryan consulted, reviewed plans, handled the technical problems that needed his expertise, but he wasn't on site 12 hours a day. He wasn't sacrificing sleep or time with Lily or his relationship with Elena. He'd learned, finally, that you could build something meaningful without destroying yourself in the process. One afternoon in May, Elena called him while he was picking Lily up from school. "Can you meet me at the original cafe, the one we rebuilt?" "When?" "Now, if you can." Ryan glanced at Lily in the rearview mirror. "You want to go see Elena? Is she at the pretty cafe with the lights?" "Yeah." "Okay." 20 minutes later, they pulled up to find Elena standing on the deck, looking out at the river. "Hey," Ryan said as they approached. "What's going on?" Elena turned and Ryan saw that she was nervous. Actually nervous, in a way he rarely saw. "I wanted to show you something," she said. She led them to a specific spot on the deck, the same place where Ryan had first identified the structural flaw that started everything. "This is where it began," Elena said, "where you stopped me from ignoring a problem I didn't want to see." "Okay?" "And I've been thinking about that, about how sometimes the things that almost break us are actually what save us." Ryan was starting to suspect where this was going, but he stayed quiet. Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out a small box. Lily gasped. Ryan's heart stopped. "I know this isn't traditional," Elena said, opening the box to reveal a simple band, not flashy, just solid and real. "And I know you might have wanted to be the one to do this, but I've never been good at waiting for permission." Ryan laughed despite the tightness in his throat. "Ryan Cole," Elena continued, "you walked into my life when I needed someone to tell me the truth. You rebuilt more than just a cafe. You rebuilt me. And I love you for that. I love Lily for that. And I want to spend the rest of my life building things with both of you." She took a breath. Will you marry me? Ryan looked at her, at the vulnerability in her eyes, the hope, the fear that he might say no, and felt everything he'd been carrying for 3 years finally lift. Yes, he said. Elena's face broke into the biggest smile he'd ever seen. She slipped the ring onto his finger, and then Lily was there, hugging both of them, and Ryan was laughing and crying at the same time. People at nearby tables started clapping. Someone whistled. Ryan didn't care. He kissed Elena, and it tasted like coffee and promise, and the life he'd been too afraid to imagine. I love you, he said when they finally pulled apart. I love you too. Lily tugged on their hands. Does this mean Elena's going to be my mom? Elena crouched down to Lily's level. I can't replace your mom. Nobody can. But I can be someone who loves you and takes care of you and shows up for you, if that's okay with you. Lily thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Okay, but can we get a dog now? Ryan and Elena both laughed. We'll talk about it, Ryan said. That means yes, Lily said confidently. And maybe it did. They got married 6 months later on a Saturday in October. Small ceremony, just family and close friends, held at the original cafe on the deck they'd rebuilt together. Lily was the flower girl and took her job very seriously, making sure every petal was distributed evenly down the aisle. Miguel showed up in a suit and gave Ryan a handshake that turned into a brief, awkward hug. Carla cried, which surprised everyone, including herself. And when Ryan and Elena stood facing each other, hands clasped, promising to build a life together, Ryan realized he'd been wrong about something fundamental. He'd thought strength was about endurance, about how much you could carry alone. But standing there with Elena and Lily, surrounded by people who'd helped them rebuild not just buildings but lives, he understood something different. Strength wasn't about carrying everything yourself. It was about knowing when to let others help, when to trust, when to risk falling because you believed someone would be there to catch you. The strongest foundations weren't built alone. They were built by people willing to show up day after day and do the work together. As they walked back down the aisle, hand in hand, Ryan looked at the deck beneath their feet, the one that had almost collapsed, the one they'd torn down and rebuilt from scratch, and thought about how fitting it was that they were standing here. Some things had to break before they could be made whole, and some people had to lose everything before they could find what actually mattered. Ryan had lost Anna. He'd lost the version of himself that existed before her death. He'd spent 3 years convinced he'd never build anything meaningful again. But he'd been wrong. He'd built this, a partnership, a family, a life worth living. And he'd learned something that would have sounded impossible 3 years ago. Sometimes the best thing you can build isn't a structure at all. Sometimes it's just the courage to try again.